Episode 10, Recon podcast. Chris Sanchez, Paul Rodriguez. Shout out to Zach Lucero. Couldn't make it this morning, though. Had something come up, so hope everything's okay, Zach. We love you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
That's Paul Rodriguez. We're going to talk a little bit today. Of course, do our high school football rundown recap. Do a tiny bit of college, Paul, just because, it's Saturday morning and college is going to be, kind of going past us by the time this drops. And then we'll definitely do some NFL. So we're going to go high school, NFL, and then college. So week 4, Seguin versus Northeast. It was all Seguin 44-6. Cedar Ridge 49, Leander 27. Also Vista Ridge 49, Westwood 43. The game I should have started with, but I did end up there, Paul.
Always trust your gut.
That's okay, because I did catch some of that Cedar Park game as well over at Gupton Stadium. But we'll talk Vista Ridge, Westwood there. I got there at about halftime. There was a swim meet going on at the same time as a football game. So it took me about 15, 20 minutes to find a parking spot. I don't know.
Who schedules a swim meet on a Friday in the fall?
I do not know. But I did eventually find a parking spot. The end of the first half, the play that I missed was, I think it was an untimed down, or maybe there was like 1 second left on the clock. 45-yard pass from Kyle Brown to Jake Bowerman. That, to me, was the tide turn for the Vista Ridge Rangers, because then going into halftime, Hail Mary pass, 45 yards. They get the score. They come out, pretty much three. Well, it was 3 and out for Westwood. Vista Ridge gets the ball back. 3 and out for them as well. But on their end, rather than punting it, they fake punt, get a first down, and then end up getting a score. Kyle Brown to Maximus Clark.
Wow.
So I think, I don't think, but I know, and shout out to the Statesman. I was reading the Statesman this morning. I love getting the recaps from. They got some great writers there at the Statesman, and they mentioned the fake punt being the catalyst for the Rangers, but to me it was the last play before the half that was really the catalyst for Vista Ridge getting that 45-yard touchdown pass from Brown to Bowerman.
And so did who came out on the ball the second half, because that's important with that last score?
Westwood came out. Westwood had the ball first half, and that was they were going against the wind. It was a windy night last night.
Okay.
So RJ was having a little bit of issues, not really a whole lot, but he's got a strong arm. So RJ Martinez, quarterback for Westwood, was going against the wind. He was also missing Julian DeBerry last night, his number one wide receiver. I did not see Julian out there on the field. Not sure if it was an injury, what else is going, or what else it could have been. It could be a number of things.
Sure.
But the bottom line is he didn't have Julian DeBerry out there, wide receiver. So he's still got some great receivers, Jace Line, Robbie Jang, Oliver Yu. But, when you don't have your deep threat, that can really be a hindrance on a number one quarterback like RJ Martinez.
Definitely, and especially if Vista Ridge was able to key on that, they could just force everybody to, put the ball in the middle of the field. And if you don't have anybody to take the top off, it's going to be really difficult to move the rock down the field, especially and that could have been RJ's, total comfort blanket, be missing his number one receiver like that. Yeah,
and, Vista Ridge, you got to give it up to them, though, man. Kyle Brown, 24 of 32, 5 touchdowns, 336 yards, no interceptions.
That's a great night.
Yeah, so he also had help with Matthew Thomas, and I was really impressed with Matthew Thomas, running back for Vista Ridge. He had 12 carries, 62 yards, not gaudy numbers, but I think he got the first downs when they needed first downs. He got the yards when they needed yards, the tough runs. That's what Matthew Thomas did for the Rangers last night.
One thing real quick, and since you were able to watch that, tell me about that offensive line for Vista Ridge. And in games like this that's just so close and so pivotal, for them to control the line of scrimmage, were they doing that? Were they dominant? Or was there more of a scheme that allowed Vista Ridge to kind of have the ability to get the victory?
They gave Kyle Brown enough time to sit in the pocket and find receivers when he needed to. When Adam Fogg, their wide receiver out on the end was running, 15-yard ends, it gave him enough time to sit there, wait for Fogg to run that route, and then get him the ball. That's a long route.
Yeah.
Getting 15 yards down the field and, making it an in cut.
Uh-huh.
So Kyle Brown's not a scrambler like RJ. So he had to sit, he kind of had to sit there. He's very patient quarterback. So the offensive line did a great job of giving him time, to find his receivers and then open up some holes to, get the offense going when they needed to. I mean, Westwood had actually outgained Vista Ridge 539 to 442. So I think it was just the big plays for Vista Ridge. Eamon Allen had the punt return for a touchdown. He also had an interception in the end zone when Westwood was trying to come back in the third quarter. I think to me, that was the difference in the game. It was 49 to 43, Vista Ridge over Westwood. So Westwood's now 1-1 in district. Vista Ridge now 2-0. So shout out to the Rangers, man. That's 2 weeks in a row that I've seen them. Those guys got a really good squad this year. Other game I went to last night, Cedar Park versus Cinco Ranch. Cedar Park 51, Cinco Ranch 3. We didn't do our research on this one, did we, Paul?
Not at all. But the thing, we were communicating on the messenger, in our private messenger, and it just, what was Cinco Ranch's biggest dilemma of the game that you felt?
They couldn't hold on to the football.
And what was it that couldn't hold? What would you feel that was the reason based off your observation?
Just inexperienced players.
Okay.
Or when I was listening to the pregame show with on Vipe Live, shout out to Brad Cohn and the crew over there. 57 seniors, Cinco Ranch graduated.
Wow.
57. They had 7 returning lettermen, 2 on offense, 2 on defense, 2 starters on offense, 2 starters on defense. And you could tell.
Wow.
You could definitely tell.
And weren't you saying something about like a new coaching staff coming in?
Brand new coaching staff, brand new head coach. Cinco Ranch didn't bring their band. I'm not sure what the deal with that was.
We know there's a lot of inclement weather that's happening recently in the Houston area, so that may have been some of the effect. Maybe transportation may have been a little bit of a hindrance. So I just couldn't believe how dominant Cedar Park was playing, and it's kind of been a Jekyll and Hyde season for Cedar Park,
right? Based
off solely the early games that they played, and being able to reload, getting primed for district play. But shout out to Cedar Park. That Black Rain defense obviously was doing their job, holding Cinco Ranch, was some would say is a perennial power, to limited them to only 3 points. Yeah, 112 total yards. I was there for the first half of that game. It got out of hand, so I was like, let me go over to Vista Ridge Westwood over at Dragon. I was at Gupton at first, and I would say out of the maybe 4 possessions that I saw Cinco Ranch, 2 of them ended up with fumble recoveries for Cedar Park, and the other 2, Cinco Ranch went backwards. Wow.
And then punted the ball away. So shout out to Cedar Park. Cedar Park doing their thing. Ryder Hernandez, 290 yards, 3 touchdowns. He did have 2 interceptions on the night, though, so got to take care of the ball a little bit better there, Ryder, moving forward. A&M consolidated over Rouse last night, 42-3. 34-16, Houston, the Village School over St. Michael's. That was St. Michael's homecoming. Vandergrift 28, Hendrickson 21. Unfortunately, Zach Lucero is not here with us to talk about that game, but Paul, I know you wanted to discuss that because Hendrickson given Vandergrift a game last night.
And we kind of talked about it Wednesday, how this could possibly be a trap game for Vandergrift. And I think this is kind of what Zach was touching on. They needed a challenge. They needed someone to come in and pretty much give them a solid game. And Hendrickson, showed up and foot the bill to do that. My biggest thing for Vandergrift is they probably were maybe a little underestimating Hendrickson going in, and Hendrickson was coming in to put the victory on him. And it was back and forth all game long. But here we go, Drew Sanders' crew again. The defense, bows their back and shows their mettle and holds Hendrickson to 21 points. And they do what they do best with Vandergrift. They score enough to just win the game. And I think that's going to be the theme for the rest of the season and into their playoff campaign. But there is a matchup next week that Vandergrift is going to be a part of. And how do you see Vista Ridge, an undefeated team, going in and playing Vandergrift, an undefeated team? Do you think this could be possibly an L, or is this going to really expose who these teams really are between that matchup of Vista Ridge and Vandergrift?
Well, it's going to be the matchup of the strengths. I mean, the strength of Vista Ridge is their offense. Strength of Vista Ridge is of Vandergrift is the defense.
Agreed.
So, I mean, who's going to be stronger? It's going to be all about game plans. I know Rodney Vincent, head coach of Vista Ridge, and Drew Sanders, head coach of Vandergrift, very good friends, old colleagues. They really like each other, good buddies, but they're competitors. And I'm sure, having a good friend on the other sideline, you probably know that guy pretty well. You know his tendencies. You know what he likes to do. It's going to be a chess match, and I really think it's going to come down to the coaching staff, because I think these teams know each other so well that if Vista Ridge does something offensively in the first half, Vandergrift, they're not afraid. Their coaching staff's not afraid to make changes at halftime.
Definitely.
So I think this is going to come down to the coaching staff, in my opinion.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that game next week on the 27th, Vista Ridge hosting Vandergrift at Gupton. If you need directions, you can go to reconathlete.com, click on the image, and it'll give you directions straight to the stadium. Yeah,
we got stadium schedules there on reconathlete.com. And that's the one thing that we talked about, Paul, that we did on the website. Buddy of mine, I got to shout out Tommy. Tommy Defoe, he lives out in Leander, Cedar Park area, and he was asking me one time a couple weeks ago, who's playing at Gupton tonight? And he's like, I see the lights on. I want to go over to the game, but sometimes I go to the game and it's not good. And he was like, who's playing? So he texted me.
Right.
And I was like, it's Cedar Ridge versus, I can't remember who it was. But I knew it right off the top of my head. And he was like, man, I wish there was somewhere where I could, find the game that's playing at that stadium. We have so many stadiums now that are shared by school districts.
Yep.
If you don't know who's playing, if you're just a football fan, you want to go check it out, reconathlete.com, check out the stadium schedules, and we've got all the schedules there, who's playing a win. Also, last night, Round Rock 56, McNeil 14. Round Rock being Round Rock, Regents 29, San Antonio Central Catholic 0, Westlake 63, Austin High 8. What can we say about that game, Paul? I mean, what we expected?
Yeah, I would say so. Westlake's a machine right now, and I think their next test is not going to be until they play Hayes, and I think that's in a couple of weeks for a district matchup. That's going to be at Bob Shelton, but they're going to be a machine, and they're just picking up where they left off last year. So, shout out to Austin High and Charles Wright, but that machine is not going to be slowed down by many.
No, it's not. And, it was a game at House Park. Usually the games, Westlake, Austin High, I've been to a few of them when they're at House Park. They're a lot of fun.
A lot of pageantry.
Yeah, Austin High gets really into it. But, man, I tell you what, Westlake, 641 total yards. Austin High, 146.
Wow.
Holding Charles Wright, Grayson Davis to 146 yards. That speaks volumes for that Westlake defense. Grayson Davis, a running back for Austin High that I don't really see his name a whole lot.
Yeah, nobody's talking about
nobody
him.
talks about this kid. This kid is good. This kid is the bruising running back. He's got some speed as well. Mm-hmm. I've seen him a couple times. Saw him against Westwood a few weeks back. Great running back. I think this is one of the running backs here in the Central Texas area that gets overlooked because there are so many great running backs that we have now.
There are.
So Grayson Davis, 19 carries, only 51 yards, and all that does is say how awesome this Westlake defense is. So shout out to the Westlake Chaps. Lake Travis 49, Aikens 0. Battle of the Lakes coming up in a couple of weeks. I think it's actually on an ACL weekend. So, that's going to be another show that's going to be in town. Westlake and Lake Travis. Dripping Springs 44, Travis 6. Rockdale putting it on Hyde Park 66-7. Manor, my Mustangs 53. Houston St. Pius 7. Waco La Vega dropping 61 on Pflugerville 61-0. And Crockett taking care of Navarro 52-2. So that's going to wrap up Week 4. Any final thoughts about Week 4 high school football here, Paul?
Yeah, I went to that Lake Travis game last night against Aikens, and I went home and I kind of just knew what Lake Travis was going to do, and I turned on Fox Sports Southwest to watch their post-game show, and I saw an interesting score last night, and Rockwall beat Arlington Martin, and Arlington Martin defeated Lake Travis Week 2. And I started thinking about, okay, well, who does Rockwall play next week? The reason it's significant is because Rockwall beat Arlington Martin, and Rockwall next week plays the 6A state champion in Longview. If Rockwall beats Longview, this is just going to show how difficult it may be for these Lake schools, especially Lake Travis, to go and make a deep run in the playoffs for a state championship. I'm not saying they can't do it. What I'm saying is, based off what I saw last night, the right side of that offensive line needs to be shore up, because you are letting a team like Aikens, who's not as skilled as most, penetrate the right side and cause havoc on Card and force him to roll out. Last night, Yarnell took some big hits when he started in the second half of that game, and that's something they're going to need to shore up before they get into playoff mode.
All right. But, that was probably the second. So it wasn't the second offensive line?
The first half, the first quarter, second quarter, Card was forced to roll out every single time to his right. And that's his dominant hand, and he got pressure from the right side. But he's a UT commit, able to go ahead and evade that rush and pick up yards on the ground. And that's where I thought the biggest hiccup is for the Lake Travis Chaparrals at this time.
Cavaliers.
I'm sorry, Cavaliers. I always get that mixed up.
Lake Travis Chaparrals. That's funny, hilarious. Though. Yeah, we'll leave that in there. Michigan and Wisconsin today. We'll talk a little bit about college football. I know it's going to be a little bit stale by the time this podcast drops, but Paul, I know you wanted to mention Michigan, Wisconsin real quick.
Yeah, Michigan, Wisconsin, they're kicking off at 11. If Harbaugh does not win this game tonight, this may be his last hurrah. But Wisconsin coming in at 13 in the nation, primed to get that W over Michigan. And we always know Wisconsin comes in with hard running backs, pound the ball. You're corn fed. We're going to just put this ball down the field through the run game. And I think today Wisconsin retires Harbaugh or gets him terminated from Michigan.
Dang.
Yeah.
All right. Wow. Okay. Before we keep moving on, Paul, you mentioned an upset last night, Utah and USC.
I kind of caught this at the tail end. It was a last-minute field goal by USC to go ahead and kick the game-winning field goal over the number 10 Utah Utes. That just caused a huge monkey wrench thrown into the Pac-12. So I'm really curious to see, especially with Longhorn Network. Longhorn Network is ending soon their contract with ESPN. And this could be the catalyst, especially with the wide open Pac-12, where we start seeing these mega conferences. And I think, and a buddy of mine, we spoke about this, Pac-12 could potentially come in as soon as the Longhorn Network contract expires with ESPN, swoop in, pick up a couple of teams from Texas, especially the Longhorns, and creates a mega conference to go toe-to-toe and create a new Pac-12 mega regional country conference.
Would it still be called Pac-12 though? They would have to change the name, wouldn't they?
They probably have to rename it something different, but they would be able to carry Longhorn Network, quote unquote, on the Pac-12 stations that they have all over the country, or whatever cable provider you subscribe to.
Man, you got me the contemplative clock going on again right now, man.
The Longhorn Network ends, I think, in 2021. Their contract.
I was like, what? Seriously?
Yep.
Nah, then Texas ain't gonna go over to the West Coast.
If ESPN doesn't want to pay the money, what's UT gonna do? They could potentially go independent.
That'd be sweet.
It would be big. I mean, and they make a lot of money.
That would be awesome. We'll talk about the independent school in the nation right now, Notre Dame, a little bit later. Auburn, Texas A&M at 2:30 though. This is your game.
Yeah, I'm still taking A&M. I think Mon gets enough done. Outplays Bo Nix. This game could be a potential setup for SEC playoff contention, because if Auburn wins the game and they go in and they play very hard against Alabama, and Alabama potentially loses to Georgia in the SEC championship, I mean, you could have another year where we're having two SEC teams in the playoff.
Texas, go ahead.
And with that loss that Utah had, Pac-12 is so weak right now. It's good. They're not going to get in that pack. They're not going to get into that top four playoff. So we're either going to have a Big 10 and Big 12 and two SEC teams, or, I mean, you might even have that dark horse UCF, who's been playing very well, still undefeated, still claiming national championships, to get in there playing that Boise State card. That's just the way I'm looking at it. I know you're shaking your head no, but
that won't happen.
You just never know.
No, I do know. They'll never let a Central Florida or Boise State or anybody like that.
So if an undefeated UCF, would they pick an undefeated UCF over a 2-loss SEC school?
No.
Okay.
No, it's all about ratings. You know that.
I agree, but Florida's a big market, especially if there's no Florida school in there. And we know Felipe Franks for Florida is already out.
Would never happen.
Okay.
Texas A&M, a 4-point favorite. They started out 3.5. So money's going on Texas A&M.
It looks like it at this time. And that could just be a lot of A&M homers putting lots of money on the books to skew that line just a little bit.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Oklahoma State and Longhorns tonight. Cowboys 3-0, Texas Longhorns 2-1. Thankfully, this game is on ABC. Longhorns just doing crazy things. Last week it was like on CBS Sports Network. The game against Rice. I was like, dude, what are y'all doing?
Yeah, that was kind of awkward. I was like, where's the game?
Yeah, it was not fun trying to catch that game. So Oklahoma State. Longhorns. Texas was a 5.5-point favorite. They're now a 7-point favorite. Homer money.
Same thing going on right here with Texas, but
golly,
I don't know if some inside information that may have been leaked out to the experts or the professional bettors that has caused this line to move like this. But I'm looking right now in the matchup predictor, and they're saying that Texas has a 61.7 round up to 62% chance to win this game. I think they do win. I don't think they cover 7.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Notre Dame and Georgia, the big game tonight on CBS, 7 o'clock. Georgia now a 14.5-point favorite. They started out at the beginning or earlier in the week as a 14-point favorite. So the line hasn't moved that much. But obviously Georgia's getting some money put it on them. So 14.5. And Paul, you think this is going to be a blowout, don't you?
I still feel the same way. I think Georgia's going to win by 17 or more, and I'm going to keep that what I went with on Wednesday night.
I don't know. I think Georgia's for fake, just like Zach said.
But Notre Dame is a fraud. They do it every year. They're just a fraud.
All right, we'll see. I don't think they are. I think Ian Book's a really good quarterback. All right, Notre Dame, Georgia tonight, 7 o'clock. They're going to show Paul, he doesn't know what he's talking about.
68% chance to win Georgia.
Says whom?
Says ESPN.
Why do you always talk about ESPN, dude? You know they don't know what they're talking about.
That's a matchup predictor.
They don't know what they're talking about.
Now, that's just a W. That's not covering 14.5. So
that's true.
I'm just talking.
All right, NFL, real quickly. Do I start both in a cash game, DFS, daily fantasy?
Yeah.
I was going to ask you this before, but I was like, I'm going to save it for the pod. Cash game, right?
Yes.
And for our listeners that don't know, a cash game meaning there's not like a whole lot of players. There's a set limit of players.
You got a lineup.
There's a lineup too. You pick your quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers. But there's not a whole lot of players in this. I think there's going to be like 40 players. Do I start both Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard at my flex position? Tony Pollard at my flex position.
Yeah. The answer to your question is,
do you like that?
It's enticing. It's very interesting because of who they're playing this week. But what would be your alternative? And I know you're going to say Pollard's going to be dirt cheap. I got you.
Yeah.
But what would be an alternative lineup, and who would you pick?
So the alternative lineup would be
keeping Zeke.
I don't know. I don't know. Let me pull it up. Let me pull it up real quick.
You didn't think I was going to come back with that question?
Well, but you didn't answer my question though. You can't be answering my question with a question. You sound like Zach Lucetto.
Yeah, but
all right, answer my question.
The interesting fact is that I thought you would have a contingency, and I think that if you did have Ezekiel Elliott available, I wouldn't go with Pollard merely on the fact that he may not get any touchdowns. He may get yards, he may get some catches, but the big money as far as touchdowns, I think they would give it out to Zeke because they'd want to make sure they scored. The other half of that is if they get in goal line situations, I think Dak. Now, if you want to do Dak and Zeke, that's different. But I think that's where I think those goal line touchdowns would go to Dak or Jason Witten in the tight end.
See, if I get Tony Pollard in there at 3,800 on DraftKings, I'm able to do Russell Wilson at quarterback.
Yep.
My two running backs would be Ezekiel Elliott and Dalvin Cook. Mm-hmm. And I can get Juju Smith-Schuster on that lineup.
Is Pollard in that Pollard?
Pollard is the flex.
Never mind. After that lineup you just described, yeah, I'd go ahead and I'd say yes and start.
I mean, now my other two wide receivers, kind of darts. Deebo Samuel, San Francisco, and Danny Amendola for Detroit. Now, if I get anything out of those guys, with Wilson, Zeke Elliott, Dalvin Cook, Juju Smith, Schuster, if they're just, hit their floors, I think I can get into the money on that. Deebo Samuel's got, Pittsburgh at home, and we know San Francisco's been putting up some points. And Danny Amendola going up against the 31st ranked Eagles defense. I think he's especially in DraftKings with the half point PPR. I think he's just a value guy because those three people, Samuel, Amendola, and Tony Pollard. Pollard and Amendola are both 3,800, and Samuel's 4,500.
Danny just needs to catch the ball.
That's all he needs to do.
All he has to do is catch the ball, and he could easily have a big game, especially going up against that horrific defense.
All right, so Dolphins and Cowboys tomorrow. I don't know if the line has moved at all, but yeah, I think I'm going to try to keep the Ezekiel Elliott, Tony Pollard combo. So
let me go ahead and just take a quick momentary look at that line. What was the line on Wednesday?
On Wednesday, it was 21.5 for the Cowboys.
Are you serious? It was 21.5?
Yes.
Or are you joshing me?
No, it was 21.5. It was almost the biggest line. The biggest line, of course, being the Patriots over the Jets, 22.5.
The line has moved.
All right.
Minus 23 Cowboys.
All right. So Ezekiel Elliott, Tony Pollard. Come on, Tony.
And
something.
All he's got to get is one TD.
I know,
if
just
50 yards, 3 catches, and a touchdown. Money.
I know. Cha-ching. Any of these other games we want to talk about tomorrow, Paul, before we end this thing?
I would probably say Ravens Chiefs. What was the line Ravens Chiefs on Wednesday?
6.5 Kansas City at home.
That's a 12 p.m. That's a 12 p.m. kickoff. Kansas City minus 5.5.
Oh, so Baltimore is getting the love.
I think they just may have skewed that line a little bit just because of the comparison between the quarterbacks of Lamar Jackson and Mr. Kermit the Frog, Patrick Mahomes. Hashtag love for Patrick Mahomes.
And just because I've got a couple of guys on my DraftKings lineup, Pittsburgh and San Francisco, has that line moved at all? San Francisco is 6.5 point favorite on Wednesday.
Same.
So,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Line doesn't move. Wow. What does that mean?
I think that means that this game's probably not getting a whole lot of attention because they know 49ers are so much better right now than the Steelers.
Nobody likes Mason Rudolph.
I think they're sleeping on Mason Rudolph.
I think
personally.
so too.
Obviously, they're not Pac-12 fans because they obviously weren't watching Oklahoma State. So we'll see.
Big 12 fans, Paul.
Yeah, hold on real quick. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're loving the podcast, please like, subscribe, and comment down below. And always turn on the bell. Later.